Within every human being, no matter where they live, what they do, or which era they belong to, there comes a moment of stillness so deep that one can almost hear the heartbeat of their own soul. It is when all the noise of life, fame, success, love, and even daily worries, begins to fade, and a gentle yet profound question rises from within. Why do I still feel something missing? Even when I seem to have everything? That question is not a sign of weakness, but the first spark of awakening. It belongs not only to those who suffer, but also to those who believe they are happy. For much of human happiness is fragile, like a thin breeze that vanishes the moment we try to grasp it. In today's world, we can reach almost anything, knowledge is a touch away. Comfort rests in our pockets, and technology connects us to the farthest corners of the earth. Yet at the same time, loneliness and emptiness within the human heart have never been greater. We can connect with thousands, but lose ourselves in the process. We may gain everything outside, yet fail to find peace inside. And that question, what am I missing? Is the echo of something ancient, the voice of truth calling from deep within humanity. Over 25 centuries ago, a young man was haunted by that very same question. He was Prince Siddhartha Gautama, the one the world would later know as the Buddha. Born into wealth and privilege, surrounded by every luxury, he could have lived a life of endless comfort. But one day, upon seeing birth, aging, sickness, and death, he realized a truth few dare to face: behind the glitter of life lies impermanence, and within impermanence hides the seed of suffering. From that moment, his heart could no longer rest. He left his palace, his crown, his family, not to escape life, but to seek the truth behind it. He did not search for a god to save him, nor wait for miracles. He turned inward, looking deeply into his own mind, the very source from which both happiness and suffering arise. After years of meditation and insight, as the morning star shone in the sky, he awakened. From that realization came the Four Noble Truths, the foundation of Buddhist wisdom, not as a religion of belief, but as a map for human consciousness. 1. The truth of suffering. The Buddha began not with belief, but with reality. He said, life is suffering, yet this suffering is not merely physical pain or emotional loss. It is the quiet sense of incompleteness that exists even in success and pleasure. We suffer not only when we fail, but even when we succeed, because deep down we know nothing lasts. Everything we love, everything we cling to, will change. Thus, no matter how much we achieve, there remains a gap between what we want and what is. That gap is dukkha, the unease that underlies all existence. 2. The origin of suffering. If suffering is the illness, craving is its cause. The Buddha saw that all suffering arises from attachment, our craving, grasping, and fear of loss. We want happiness to stay, people to behave as we wish, and life to bend to our desires. But life is not ours to control. This craving exists not only in material things but deep within the mind, the desire to be loved, to be recognized, to be secure, to be better than others. These desires, though deeply human, are the chains that bind us to fear and disappointment. The Buddha did not condemn desire, he simply revealed its nature, that attachment carries within it the seed of sorrow. Seeing this clearly is the first step toward freedom. 3. The cessation of suffering. If suffering has a cause, it also has an end. When attachment ceases, peace appears. Letting go does not mean rejecting life, it means releasing the illusion that life must always obey our wishes. When the mind is free from greed, anger, and ignorance, when it no longer resists or clings, nirvana reveals itself, not as a distant realm, but as the quiet freedom within one's own heart. It is not escape from life, but understanding life so deeply that it no longer controls you. 4. The path to liberation. From that understanding, the Buddha revealed the Noble Eightfold Path, a way to live with clarity and compassion. Right view, right intention, right speech. Right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. This is not a path for monks alone, but a way of mindful living, where every thought, word, and deed arises from wisdom and kindness. Today, as the world grows louder and the human heart more restless, these four truths shine even brighter. We may conquer the stars, build great cities, and master technology, yet if we have not understood ourselves, we remain wanderers lost within our own minds. The Buddha did not ask us to believe in him, he asked us to look. Only by facing suffering can we understand peace. Only by accepting impermanence can we truly love. Only by ceasing to run from ourselves can we be free. That question, why do I still feel empty even when I have everything, is not a problem to be solved, but a doorway to awakening. For what feels missing is not outside, but the awareness we have forgotten within. The Buddha once said, "No one saves us but ourselves." Freedom is not found in blind faith, but in mindful living, in every breath, every thought, every act of understanding. And when we live this way, something wondrous happens. The emptiness no longer frightens us. It becomes a vast, gentle space, the space of wisdom, love, and freedom. In that silence, we realize nothing has ever been missing. We had only forgotten how to listen. When we listen deeply, when we see life as it is, we understand that suffering is not the end, but the beginning of awakening. It is the very doorway through which we return home to the quiet, luminous peace that has always been within us. Today, even as the world changes rapidly, humanity still faces the same suffering the Buddha once saw. Anxiety, fear, loneliness, and restlessness. We have technology and comfort, yet we have lost our inner stillness. Our minds are constantly stretched between the past and the future. We chase happiness in the outer world, in wealth, love, and success, forgetting that true happiness can only be found within ourselves. Mindfulness is the doorway home. When we slow our breath and look deeply into the present moment, every breath becomes a miracle. We begin to see that fear is not our enemy, but an invitation, a call to return and understand ourselves. Every emotion, every thought, every event in life is a lesson of the heart. No pain is meaningless when seen through the eyes of awareness. Buddhist philosophy does not ask us to withdraw from the world. It teaches us how to live within it, without being bound by it. An awakened person can still work, love, and laugh. But within every action, there shines the light of understanding and compassion. When we see that everyone carries their own share of suffering, we become more forgiving. When we see that all things are impermanent, we learn to cherish every moment. And when we realize that happiness does not come from the outside, we stop, and simply smile. The Buddha's journey was not the journey of a god, but of a human being who awakened. He was once a prince who had everything. Yet he dared to let it all go, seeking the answer to humanity's deepest question, why do we suffer? And through his awakening, he discovered this timeless truth. All beings have the seed of enlightenment within. It means that every one of us, no matter how lost or broken, carries within the potential to awaken. When we stop, look deeply, and understand ourselves, that seed begins to bloom. More than ever, the modern world needs this return. Not a return to religion, but to the stillness of the heart, where the mind is no longer ruled by greed, anger, or ignorance. When someone truly finds peace within, they no longer need to prove anything. They simply live, quietly, gently, like a candle that does not shout, yet silently brings light to those still lost in the dark. And perhaps that is the deepest meaning of the Buddha's teaching. Not to make us better people, but to make us freer. Free from fear, free from attachment, free from the endless cycle of suffering we create ourselves. When the mind is liberated, the world itself becomes softer. Everything remains the same, yet the way we see has changed. The sky is still blue, the river still flows. Only now, we truly see, looking back at life, we will see that all suffering arises from one very small thing, the refusal to accept the present moment as it is. We want life to be different. We want others to change, we want everything to happen according to our will. But the universe does not operate according to anyone's will. When we resist that natural flow, suffering arises, not because life is unfair, but because we have not yet learned the art of flowing with impermanence. The Buddha called it anatta, non-self, a profound truth that few dare to face. We grow up with the idea that, I am I, that there is a separate self that needs to be protected, proven, and praised. It is this illusion of self that is the root of all conflicts. When the I is offended, we get angry. When the I is not recognized, we suffer. When the I is abandoned, we despair. But look deeply, where is this I? If this body changes every day, emotions change every minute, and thoughts come and go, then what truly is I? When we truly see through this, there is nothing left to hold on to. No more I and they, no more gain or loss. Only the flow of life unfolding in vast silence. And at that very moment, our mind touches true freedom. The Buddha taught, there is no path that leads to happiness, happiness itself is the path. Many people tirelessly search for happiness as a destination in the future. They say, when I have a better job, I will be happy. When I find the ideal partner, I will be at peace. When I succeed, I will be calm. But life is always changing, and the things we think will bring us joy often make us crave even more. That endless circle never stops until we realize happiness is not something to be achieved, but something to be recognized in the present moment. True happiness does not come from having more, but from letting go. Letting go of expectations. Letting go of comparisons, letting go even of the idea that, I must be different. When the mind stops, each breath becomes sacred. A quiet afternoon, the rustle of leaves, sunlight falling on the ground, all contain the fullness of existence. In the Zen tradition, there is a story about a Zen master. One day, someone asked him, "What have you attained after many years of meditation?" The master smiled and replied, "Before enlightenment, I chopped wood and carried water. After enlightenment, I still chop wood and carry water." The person was surprised, "So what is the difference?" He replied, "Before, when I chopped wood, my mind thought about water, when I carried water, my mind thought about wood. Now, when I chop wood, I just chop wood, when I carry water, I just carry water." That story is simple yet contains the essence of mindfulness. Enlightenment is not flying to heaven or performing miracles, it is living fully in each ordinary moment. A person can sit quietly in the midst of the marketplace and still have a mind as calm as an autumn lake, because they are no longer swept away by the waves of illusion. The modern world makes people believe that their value lies in how much they can do, how much they own, or how many people recognize them. But the more we chase, the more exhausted we become. Success, without understanding, only feeds the self, not the soul. And when the self becomes inflated, even a small scratch can cause deep pain. Buddhism does not deny the material world, but reminds us that wealth, fame, and power are like clouds in the sky. They come and go, they cannot be kept forever. The only thing that remains is the quality of the mind. A pure heart can transform suffering into understanding, loss into growth, and impermanence into beauty. When we learn to live mindfully, every experience, no matter how small, becomes a lesson in awakening. A falling drop of water, a passing breeze, or a stranger's glance can suddenly make us realize, everything is speaking to us in its own way. Nothing is random in this universe. Everything is a reflection of the mind. If the mind is calm, the world is peaceful. If the mind is disturbed, everything becomes unstable. Someone asked, how can I begin this journey? The answer is truly simple. With a single breath. Just stop, breathe in deeply, breathe out slowly, and feel life within yourself. That is already one step on the path of awakening. Because in that breath, we realize the truth, everything is changing, and yet we are still here, aware and witnessing. This journey has no fixed destination. There is no final enlightenment, because each day is an opportunity to awaken more deeply, to love more widely, and to understand more clearly. The Buddha did not promise anyone happiness, he only showed the way. That path can be walked by anyone, kings or beggars, Easterners or Westerners. For suffering and joy, ambition and fear, are the common language of all humanity. When we understand this, compassion naturally arises. We no longer look at others with judgment, but with empathy. Because we know they too are walking on their own journey toward the light, just like us. Each person is a fragment of the vast whole, and when one awakens, the entire humanity shines a little brighter. In that silence, we realize that the Buddha is not far away. The Buddha is the awareness within us, in our breath, in our gaze, in the quiet acceptance of all that is. No rituals are needed, no worship required, only a clear mind and an open heart. Then life, even if brief, becomes a living sutra of enlightenment, but to truly walk the path that the Buddha pointed out, one must begin with honesty toward oneself. Not the honesty of words, but the deep inner truthfulness, the courage to look directly into what is happening inside. Whether it is fear, anger, or the emptiness we always try to hide. We often believe we understand ourselves, but in fact, most of the time we live through ideas about who we are. I am a good person. I am successful. I am a victim. I must be strong. These statements seem to define the self, but in reality, they are chains of ignorance. Only when we dare to sit quietly and observe the mind do we see that nothing inside is fixed. Today we are happy, tomorrow we are sad, one word can make us love, yet another can make us hate. Emotions, thoughts, memories, all arise, change, and dissolve. So what is I? That question is not meant to find an answer, but to open the door of awareness. Because only when we realize that I is not real do we stop fighting life. We stop trying to prove something, stop comparing with others, stop running away from ourselves. And when that struggle ends, what remains is a peace without cause. In each mindful breath, we begin to see clearly the truth of impermanence. Everything changes, this body, the people we love, our work, our fame, all flow like a river. If we try to hold the water, it will burst in our hands. Only when we let go can the river flow naturally through us, and only then can we truly merge with life. That is the spirit of Wu Wei, acting without effort. It does not mean giving up, but living in harmony with natural law, not driven by desire or fear. When the mind is calm, actions become natural. When the mind is clear, wisdom naturally guides every step. That is how the awakened one lives, without needing to prove anything, yet every step and every word carries the energy of mindfulness. Then we realize, suffering is no longer the enemy, but the teacher. Without suffering, we would never look deeply into ourselves. Suffering opens the door of understanding, just as the night allows us to see the light. In each moment of pain, if we are calm enough to observe, we will hear the voice of the soul. Do not run away anymore. Listen, feel, and learn to love this very thing. At that moment, suffering dissolves, not because we escape from it, but because we understand it. Just as mist disappears when the sun rises, pain cannot remain in the light of wisdom. modern people often ask, how can I be happy? But perhaps the right question is, how can I stop creating more suffering? Because true happiness does not come from adding something new, but from removing the obstacles in the mind. When the mind is no longer bound, peace naturally appears, as effortlessly as breathing, as naturally as the sky after rain. In truth, the path shown by the Buddha does not require us to abandon the world, but to change the way we live in it. One may dwell in the noisy streets yet remain serene, because their stillness is not dependent on external silence but is nourished from within. Conversely, someone may live in the quiet mountains yet still be restless, for they have not yet discovered the stillness of the heart. Mindfulness is the first gate. When we are truly present, we begin to see the subtleties of the mind. A thought arises, we know it arises, an emotion appears, we know it is there. No judgment, no pursuit, just quiet observation. That very observation is the seed of awakening. Because when the light of awareness shines, the darkness of ignorance naturally disappears. Gradually, we understand that life never stands against us. Only an unawakened mind sees life as suffering. In truth, life always moves in the best way to help us grow. A person who hurts us comes to teach forgiveness. A loss comes to teach letting go. A failure comes to show what truly matters. Nothing is accidental. Everything is a spiritual lesson, arriving at the right time, in the right way. And then, when we understand this, our heart softens. No more blame, no more resentment, only deep gratitude. Grateful for every tear that taught us compassion. Grateful for every fall that taught us to stand again. Grateful for life itself, though full of storms, for patiently helping us awaken. When the heart is filled with gratitude, everything becomes sacred. A wildflower by the road, a child's smile, a gentle breeze, all become Dharma talks. The universe becomes alive. Each breath becomes meditation, every moment becomes awakening. That is the true meaning of the Noble Eightfold Path, not distant ideals, but the way we live each day. To speak truthfully, act kindly, nurture compassion, keep the mind clear, and live mindfully. Nothing mystical, nothing beyond reach, just returning to ourselves in the simplest and most silent way. And when we live like that, happiness is no longer a goal but a natural result of a peaceful heart. We no longer need to try to be happy, because joy already exists in presence. We no longer need to try to love, because love naturally flows from a heart free of fear. To live like this, even for a single day, is a day worth living. For it is the day we truly become ourselves, no masks, no judgment, no escape, simply living in the pure truth of being. When we look back at the entire teaching of the Buddha, every path, every word, whether brief or profound, all converge upon one single point: the awakening of the mind. For countless lifetimes, human beings have sought happiness outside themselves, in fame, in love, in power, in recognition. Yet no one has ever truly found peace without discovering the way back to their own heart. The Buddha did not offer humanity a blind belief, he offered a method to discover the truth for oneself. He did not say, "Believe in me," but rather, "See for yourself." And that is the essence of the Four Noble Truths, not just words written in scripture, but an invitation to look deeply into the reality of this very moment. Suffering, dukkha, is something no one can escape. But within suffering lies the seed of awakening. For when we dare to stop and observe our pain, no longer running from it, no longer resisting it, the veil of ignorance begins to fall. We see clearly that suffering is not the enemy, but the doorway. That doorway opens the moment we cease to fear it. And beyond that doorway lies the truth of dukkha, that all things are impermanent, that attachment is the root of pain, and that freedom exists only when the mind is free from clinging. People often ask, how can I stop suffering? The Buddha's answer is not about escape, but about understanding. When we understand suffering, we are no longer controlled by it. When we see its root, tanha, the craving, the endless thirst for more, we finally learn how to stop. And when we stop, wisdom arises, compassion blossoms. For only by understanding ourselves can we truly understand others. If we contemplate deeply, we realize that all beings share the same pain and the same longing for happiness. The one who hurts us, the one who angers us, they too are struggling with their own wounds. And when we see that, our heart softens. We no longer wish to retaliate or prove ourselves right. We only wish to understand and to love. That is when the Four Noble Truths cease to be a philosophy and become a living breath in every moment. When we can pause before anger, recognize fear, and listen to the quiet voice within, we are already walking the path of the Noble Eightfold Way, the path the Buddha opened to free all beings from suffering. There is no salvation from outside, only awakening from within. That path does not promise a heaven, but leads to serenity within ordinary life. A practitioner does not need to leave the world, only to learn how to live in it without being ruled by it. To live amidst the river of life without being swept away, that is wisdom. To love without attachment, that is compassion. To act without craving for results, that is non-self. Once we understand this, everything in life becomes simple. Each step, each breath is meditation, each glance, each smile can be mindfulness practice. There is no need to search for peace in distant places, for peace is found the moment we stop and see clearly the present moment. The beauty of the Dharma lies in experience, not in belief. You may read 1,000 pages of scripture, but if you have never once sat quietly to observe your breath, you have not yet stepped upon the Buddha's path. For the Dharma does not reside in words, but in the awakened mind. If one day you feel tired, lost, or overwhelmed by life, just stop. Take a deep breath, and listen to the silence within you. In that silence, you will see a very gentle light, not blazing like fire, but bright enough to reveal every illusion. That is the light of wisdom, the gift the Buddha left for humanity over 2,500 years ago. He never asked anyone to believe, only to realize for themselves. And when realization comes, you see that suffering does not need to be eliminated, it only needs to be understood. Once understood, it dissolves naturally, like morning mist under the rising sun. Life, though full of change, can still be a place of refuge. For refuge does not lie in circumstance, but in how we perceive it. If our mind is peaceful, then even in the noise of the marketplace, we can hear the silent sermon of the Dharma. Perhaps the deepest message the Buddha wished to offer. Humanity was not, do not suffer, but understand suffering. For within understanding lies compassion, and within compassion, freedom. This is a path without a destination, yet every step upon it is liberation. And perhaps, right now, as you read these words, you too are taking your first steps upon that path. The path of understanding, of letting go, and of unconditional love. If these teachings touch your heart, please share your reflections. Have you ever experienced a moment when you saw the true nature of suffering, and from that, your heart became lighter? Leave your thoughts below, for perhaps your story will help someone walking through darkness find their own light. This journey belongs to no one alone, it is the shared journey of all who are learning to awaken and to live with an open heart. And as the Buddha once said, no one can save another, but we can all help light the way for each other. If you feel the stillness and wisdom in these teachings, share your reflections in the comments below. Sometimes, a single sincere word can be a seed of awakening planted in another's heart. Let us keep the flame of mindfulness alive, so that the light of the Dharma continues to shine everywhere, through each breath, each heart finding its way home.